The air was heavy with an unspoken tension, a blend of curiosity and fear that made her heartbeat quicken. She stood in the doorway, hesitant, staring at the unfamiliar space that would soon be her home. The quiet hum of life in the building felt oddly comforting yet unnervingly strange. Was this the start of a new chapter? Or a prelude to an unraveling mystery? Her journey wasn't about finding a place to belong, it was about escaping the shadows of her past. But here, amidst the ordinary chaos of the shared house, she felt an odd pull. The walls, lined with pictures and knickknacks, whispered stories she couldn't yet understand. Her eyes landed on a figure across the hall, a boy, his presence magnetic yet shrouded in an inexplicable sadness. Who was he, and why did he seem to notice her hesitation without saying a word? The first encounter was fleeting. He walked past her, a gentle nod acknowledging her presence. But in that brief moment, their eyes met, and a flicker of something passed between them, a connection, or perhaps just a shared sense of displacement. She couldn't tell. All she knew was that his silence spoke louder than words. Days turned into weeks, and she found herself drawn into the rhythm of the house. The bustling mornings, the quiet evenings, and the shared moments in the kitchen felt like a life she'd never known. Yet there was always an undercurrent of mystery, a sense that everyone carried secrets they were unwilling to share, especially him. He wasn't unfriendly, but he kept his distance. She often caught glimpses of him reading by the window or lost in thought on the balcony. His world seemed so far away from hers, yet their paths crossed in the smallest of ways. A shared glance, a brief exchange of words, or the silent companionship of sitting in the same room. Each interaction left her with more questions than answers. What was he hiding? And why did she care? One evening, as the rain poured outside, she found herself in the common room. He was there too, his eyes fixed on the storm beyond the glass. The atmosphere was thick with an unspoken weight, and she couldn't help but break the silence. "Do you always watch the rain like this?" she asked, her voice softer than she intended. He turned to her, a faint smile playing on his lips. "It reminds me of things I'd rather not forget." His words lingered in her mind, opening a door she wasn't sure she wanted to enter. What was he holding on to? And did she have the courage to ask? Their conversations became more frequent after that night. They weren't deep, but they carried a sense of intimacy that surprised her. She learned bits and pieces about him, his love for music, his habit of sketching late at night, and his tendency to lose himself in thought. Yet, there was always a part of him that remained unreachable, like a shadow that danced just out of reach. One afternoon, she stumbled upon one of his sketches. It was tucked away in a forgotten corner of the house, a drawing of a girl standing beneath a tree. The details were exquisite, but it was the expression on the girl's face that caught her attention. It was a look of longing, of waiting for something, or someone. Was this a glimpse into his heart? Or was it just her imagination running wild? She decided to confront him, the sketch tucked safely in her hand. When she found him, he was in his usual spot by the window, his gaze distant. "Is this yours?" she asked, holding up the paper. His eyes widened for a moment before softening. "I didn't mean for anyone to see that," he admitted, his voice laced with vulnerability. "It's, someone I used to know." His answer only deepened the mystery. Who was she? And why did she matter so much to him? The questions burned in her mind, but she didn't press further. Instead, she sat beside him, the silence between them filled with unspoken understanding. As time passed, their bond grew stronger. She began to see the cracks in his armor, the moments of pain he tried so hard to hide, and he, in turn, started to notice the shadows in her eyes. They were both running from something, yet they found solace in each other's company. It was a fragile connection, but it was real. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, he turned to her with a question that caught her off guard. "Do you ever feel like you're waiting for something? Like your life is on pause and you're just stuck?" The question hit her like a wave, washing over the walls she'd built around her heart. She nodded, unable to find the words to respond. He didn't press her, but his gaze held a depth that made her feel seen in a way she never had before. Was this what she'd been missing all along? Someone who understood her, even without knowing her story? Their connection was tested when a misunderstanding threatened to pull them apart. It was a small incident, a careless word spoken in frustration, but it opened old wounds they'd both tried to ignore. The air between them grew tense, and for the first time, she felt the weight of what they could lose. Would they find their way back to each other? Or was this the beginning of the end? In the quiet moments that followed, she found herself reflecting on the journey they'd shared. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. And as she stood outside his door, her heart pounding in her chest, she realized something important. She didn't want to lose him. Not now, not ever. When he opened the door, his expression softened at the sight of her. Neither of them spoke, but the silence was filled with everything they couldn't say. And in that moment, she knew they still had a chance to mend what was broken and to keep moving forward, together. The future was uncertain, but as they sat side by side, watching the stars, she felt a flicker of hope. Their story was far from over, and the mysteries they carried were still waiting to be unraveled. But for now, they had each other, and that was enough.